All right, so welcome back and to this part two of the video for the topic of the biosphere. We look at how life has organized itself and made, in fact, some links between all this biodiversity that we just talked about. Before we do over the topic, the concept of population and species, I just want to clarify two words that tend usually to be confused to each other. Those two words are, in fact, habitat and niche. The habitat is, in fact, where the place where an organism will be living. So it's really you're looking at the site where the animal will find, or the organism, sorry, will find the food, the shelter, and also a mate. It's really the living place of the organism, the place where the organism lives. Niche is in fact a more complex concept where it's kind of looking at the function or the place of this organism within the biodiversity, how in some way this organism interact with the environment, interact with the other species. So the niche will be in fact being taking parts, it will be including the habitats, so how it find its food, the shelter and mates. We're not looking at the place, which is the habitats. We're looking at how the behavior, the functioning part. And so we're looking at their possible adaptation to the organism with the ecosystem, the way they may evolve over time, the interaction between those species, the physical interaction. And so it's ecological niche is really the location, not the location, but the position, the function of that species within the ecosystem. So I wanted to separate those two words because there is a usual kind of misconnection, confusion between those two. Let's now talk about what we call population. So when we're talking about population, we are referring to a group of similar individuals living together, interacting together, such as a population of a city, a population of a country, a population of the world that would be in fact bigger. But let's talk about the population of the class, where everyone, we share the same characteristic, we're all human, we have some specific traits, and we're living close together, we're interacting all together, and given time, our population may increase, decrease, stay the same, and the number can change. So when we investigate, we look at the trend of a population over time, we talk about population ecology. We're looking at how that population has changed and what has caused those changes. So usually to look at the population, it's what we've done already for the previous topic with human population. We're looking at the size. We may look at the age structure. That's something we talked about with the pyramid. We're looking at the dynamics, meaning the evolution through times, the density, how many humans, for example, you have within the classroom versus within the campus. Sorry for those windows I'm removing right now. And then we can talk also about dispersion. In some way, the type of clusters we're making. We might be a lot in the classroom, but maybe we all kind of located within the corners of the classroom, and the center might be without too many people. Or maybe we might be more uniform and having a bit of people everywhere in the classroom. So that would be the dispersion part. So population ecology will look at these different factors, okay? And that's something when we're looking at the evolution of species over time. Usually it's a reflection, it's a summary of all those factors that has been studied. For this lecture, I mostly would like to focus on major characteristics of a population. And one of the first one is, in fact, what we call the reproductive strategies. As population, we in some way are guided to reproduce so our species can go over time. But naturally, we have two possible strategies, which of course, in general, we don't choose. This is something that has been naturally innate in us. And so we have two possible reproductive strategies, what we're calling the R strategies, or those we call that are driven by exponential growth. So the R strategies will be usually little species where they'll have a lot of offspring because they have little survival rate, meaning a lot of those offspring will die very quickly. There is no parental care because, of course, lots of kids, so forget about taking care of that. They usually have a shorter lifespan, going quicker to sexual maturity, so they can reproduce faster. On the other side, like us, we tend to be like what we call case strategists. We have few springs. We're making sure that those offsprings will survive. So we have a pretty high survival rate. We, for that, have a high parental care. And in general, those species tend to be big species. We usually have a longer lifespan, some years to live. We're coming to sexual maturity pretty late. And so we differentiate both strategies between the R to the K. And that impacts, in fact, on the evolution of those species over time, of those populations, over time. If we look at this graph, we have two different types of population. We have a gorilla population and a butterfly population. You'll see that because of the strategy they decided, mountain gorilla tend to have kind of a more stagnant type of population. It's pretty smooth over time, over the different decades. Meanwhile, the butterfly population tend to be more up and down, having a lot of oscillation happening. And that can impact on how those populations can adapt to the environment. It looks like a gorilla population will be more adapted to the environment, but in fact, to little change. As soon as there is a big change, a gorilla population will have a harder time to adapt to that change because, well, they only rely on a couple of offsprings only. So it's very tricky for the population to recover. Meanwhile, as you can see, butterfly, they are used to have some years with some down and some years with some up. And so populations that tend to be R strategies will usually be kind of hit very hardly by some disturbance, but their resilience will be in fact greater over time. So that's kind of explaining why we do have different kind of strategies just as an adaptation regarding some possible change. And so in general, we do observe a different type of population growth between both. Usually we have, it's not always the case, but the case strategies will have this kind of population growth that will be more looking like a S shape, what we call the logistic population growth, where the population will always be in kind of in equilibrium with the carrying capacity. So they are pretty well with the carrying capacity. Meanwhile, the R strategies tend to be more J-shaped, or what we call exponential population growth, where in fact they go over the carrying capacity. And of course, it's making what we call the overshoot, and it's crawling down at some point. That's kind of maybe explaining why we have those up and downs, because maybe the butterfly kind of took all the food and didn't have enough food for the next population to come, or for a successful reproduction. So there is some relationship between the reproduction strategy and the adaptation to the environment. What we notice too is some genetic variation. So the adaptation to the environment will be made by, in fact, our genetic information. And so with this graph, what we observe is two types of population of fish. One will be very well adapted to a specific temperature. And you see that when we are in the middle of that temperature, it's really good. The other one will tend to be adapted to a bigger range of temperature, but there is not in some way a thriving temperature. Of course, it's doing a bit better in the middle, but not as much as the other one. If, you would change the temperature of the water for those fish, making maybe this temperature higher, well, for that one, you would at least keep a survival portion of those fish. So they would be able to adapt to a change. However, those ones will be mostly going extinct. So our genetic baggage kind of program us to be fitted with the environment and to be fitted with some possible or not change. And that will make also a difference of why some population will be more inclined to potentially disappear with a change in the environment than others, because of the genetic information that we have. Also, another way that they can be impacted will be the distribution geographically. If you are more spread around the world, such as maybe those butterfly or those birds, you have more chance to survive to a change in the environment. Because, well, maybe let's say there is a big explosion of a volcano right there. It's fine. On Western Europe, those populations will be surviving. So with a big distribution, you at least saving a portion of it. If you like the gorilla and very located in only a small region, anything that will happen to that region will destroy the population. And since you don't find the gorilla anywhere else on the planet, you are done with the species. So usually the geographic distribution will relate to the chance of survival. However, in terms of adaptation, those gorillas live in such a little place because in fact that's really where they are in equilibrium with the environment, and they have access. They are in fact made a fusion with the environment where they have access to enough food and they are perfect in equilibrium. But if you change, if you disrupt that equilibrium, you impacting on those species. And so I kind of explained already, I had that question right now, but I kind of explained already that question, okay? So I'll take another break for that video. It's been about 10 minutes and we will keep going with video number 3 on the definition of species and interaction of species between themselves, right? So see you in video number 3.